Hello, friends. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I'm sorry that last 3-4 days we could not have this session. There were various reasons. One, I was traveling. The other was that I got a high fever during last 2 days. So that was one of the reasons. We are trying to find out some solution for this. Maybe we'll plan for record sessions also in case I'm unable to take the live session. On the last occasion, we have discussed up till section number 7 of the CGST Act. Today, Shalin, is the recording on? Give me a second. So today we'll be discussing with section 8 onwards. Let me share the file first. And one more announcement. There are a lot of messages and mails which I'm receiving for the book that was to be released. As I've already mentioned, that due to some last minute changes, the book was kept on hold. Now it has been released. Now it is released and it's there in the market. So anyone who has ordered, the books have been sent to them by the publisher. This is the promise which the publisher has given to me. And in case who wants to purchase from the market, it has reached to the bookseller's place. And in case of some of the cities wherein it is yet to reach, probably very soon, within a day or two, it will be reached. So that was about the book, because many messages, many query I'm receiving for that. So this was the update. Now coming to section 8, which is there on your screen. Now, as we have discussed on the last occasion, that section 7 is the taxable event, which says supply and the scope of supply. Now, under GST law, supplies are further considered to be either a single supply, or when there is a bundled supply, as we used to see there in the service tax also, the bundled service. And if you all can remember that in case of bundled service also, the concept was that the dominant supply, the dominant service, the rate which was there, it was taking the shape of the entire or the color of the entire supply. Now, in GST, when a bundled supply is there, either supply of service bundled with supply of goods, or supply of two services, or supply of two goods, which are taxable. So the GST law has considered multiple supplies or a bundled supplies as either a composite supply or a mixed supply. When I say composite supply, then the taxability and the way and the manner it is sought to be taxed is slightly different from when I say mixed supply. So I'll not read this table, which is the analysis. So I'll be directly going to the statutory provision. Now this is the statutory provision, table 8.1, capital A, which says the tax liability on a composite or a mixed supply shall be determined in the following manner, namely. Now you all might be remembering that while discussing the definitions, we have touched upon the definition which is provided in clause 30 of section 2 of composite supply and clause 74 of section 2, the mixed supply. What is a composite supply? Composite supply is a supply which is made by a taxable person. Again, taxable person is defined, we all are aware. To a recipient, the term recipient also is defined, we all are aware. I'll not be reiterating, I'll not be repeating the same so as to save the time, because we are already not in a position to continue on the various on the various dates. So I'll not be wasting time on that. Consisting of two or more taxable supplies of goods or services or both, or a combination thereof. So either two or more taxable supplies of goods, or two or more taxable supply of services, or a taxable supply which comprises of goods and services both, which are naturally bundled. Now, this is very important, which are naturally bundled. So it has to be a naturally bundled supply of two or more goods or services or both, and supplied in conjunction with each other in the ordinary course of business, one of which is a principal supply. Again, we have seen the definition of principal supply also while discussing the definition, so I will not be going into that. So the concept is that a composite supply is a supply wherein two or more goods or services or both, which are taxable supplies, are supplied in a naturally bundled form and in conjunction with each other and in the ordinary course of business. Then in that case, it may be falling within the purview of the composite supply, provided one of those supplies from that bundle is a principal supply. Then comes mixed supply. It says two or more individual supplies of goods or services or both, or any combination thereof, made in conjunction with each other by a taxable person for a single price. Now, this is important, for a single price where such supply does not constitute a composite supply. So first and foremost, if we adopt the elimination process, then in that elimination process, wherein the supply is a bundled supply, we'll have to first get it eliminated from the purview of composite supply. And once it gets eliminated from the purview of composite supply, it may fall within the purview of mixed supply. And what is a mixed supply? It means two or more individual supply of goods or services. It doesn't say two or more taxable supplies of goods or services or both. So therefore, it may be taxable, it may be exempt, but it is a bundled supply of two or more goods or services or both, and which are made in conjunction with each other for a single price. So if a single price is charged for two individual goods or two individual supplies, one of which is goods and one of which is services, and which is not having any principal supply in that bundle, which are not naturally bundled, then in that case, it falls within the purview of mixed supply. These are the definitions which we have already dealt with. Now, how does the taxability of mixed supply or composite supply is attracted? So subsection 8, clause A, which says a composite supply comprises two or more supplies, one of which is a principal supply, shall be treated as a supply of such principal supply. So meaning thereby, the rate which is applicable to the principal supply will be applicable to the entire bundle in case of a composite supply. So therefore, as I've already stated, as I've already said, that we are first liable or responsible to eliminate the probability of a supply or a bundled supply being composite supply. If we are unable to do that, meaning thereby, if a mix of supply, which is comprising of two or more taxable supplies, which are naturally bundled in conjunction with each other, and one of which is a principal supply, it will fall within the purview of composite supply. And once it falls within the purview of composite supply, then the question arises, what will be the rate with that has to be made applicable to the entire supply? Let me give an example. I'm procuring or purchasing a car. Along with car, they say that there will be 4 services which will be provided free of cost because you have purchased the car. Or I purchased, let's say, an air conditioner. The person says that with the purchase of air conditioner, the installation of that air conditioner will be provided free of cost. So therefore, the criteria is 2 or more taxable supplies. So first and foremost, we'll have to see that whether these two supplies, a car and a service, or air conditioner and the installation, whether these two are taxable or not. If it is taxable, then it means it is a mixed supply. It is a mix or a bundled supply. I'll not say mixed supply, otherwise you'll get confused. So it's a bundled supply. If it is a bundled supply, then we'll go further that whether it is a naturally bundled, the answer would be yes. Because if I will purchase air conditioner, I'll certainly go for the installation of the same. If I will purchase the car, certainly I'll have to go for the service of the same. So therefore, it is naturally bundled and are supplied in conjunction with each other. Now the question arises whether there is any principal supply in this bundle. The answer would again be yes. Although these both supplies are taxable individually, but the way and the manner it is bundled, one of these supplies are the predominant supply, because if that is not the supply, then certainly the another supply would not be forming part of that. Meaning thereby, if I'm not purchasing car, then there is no question of getting the service. If I'm not purchasing the air conditioner, then again there is no question of getting the installation. So therefore, one supply is dependent on the other supply, and the other supply on which the first supply is dependent, or either of the supplies are dependent, that will become the principal supply. So in this case, car will become the principal supply, and another example, air conditioner will become the principal supply. And therefore, clause A says if it is a composite supply satisfying with the conditions of clause 30 of section 2 falling within the purview of mixed composite supply, then the rate of tax on the entire product on the entire bundle will be applicable at the rate which is applicable to the principal supply. So if car is at the rate of 28% and service is at the rate of 18%, we cannot say that we'll bifurcate this artificially and we'll say that this is the value of the service which is being provided free of cost, and this is the value of the car, and therefore 28% should be applicable to car, which is goods, and 18% will be applicable to the services which is being provided for along with the car. It becomes a composite supply, and therefore the rate of 28% will be applicable to the entire bundle. This is clause A. What does clause B says? Clause B says a mixed supply comprising two or more supplies shall be treated as a supply of that particular supply which attracts the highest rate of tax. Now, when we say mixed supply, we need to go back to the definition. First and foremost, during the elimination process of a bundled supply, we have reached to a conclusion that it is not a composite supply. First, that is to be done. If it is not a composite supply, then we need to understand that whether the question of mixed supply is determinable on the basis of a single price which is being charged for the supply of two or more individual supplies. If the answer is yes, and also the answer to the question that none of the supplies are dependent on each other, if the answer is yes to that question also, then in that case, I'm of the view that it will fall within the purview of mixed supply. That means you are purchasing, let's say as a gift item, on the occasion of some festival, you are going to a mithai wala shop and you are purchasing a packet or a bouquet which includes a dry fruit, let us presume at taxable at the rate of 5%, chocolate taxable at the rate of, let's say, 28%, and some other item which is taxable at the rate of 18%. Now, dry fruits, chocolates, and that third item, all three are individual sellable products. But what the shopkeeper has done, he has comprised it into a single packet, mixed all these three products into a single packet and charged a single price for that. And therefore, these supplies, two or more supplies, which are individual supplies, now are bundled together and sold at a single price. And none of them is a principal supply. All are independent. None of them is dependent on each other. And therefore, the rate which is applicable to this single price would be the rate which is the highest rate applicable to all the individual supplies. So therefore, in my example, if dry fruit is 5%, if third item is, let's say, 18%, and chocolate is 28%, then on the entire bundle, 28% will be applicable, not the individual rates. So this is what is section 8 clause B, which says in case of mixed supply, the highest rate which is applicable to a particular supply which is the part of the mix supply, will be applicable to the entire supply. Now, when we say there are no amendments to this section, then relevant notifications 9/2017, we all are aware that this is the notification which is by the central government, which appoints the first day of July 2017 as the date from which these sections are applicable. Then relevant rules, there are no relevant rules to this particular section. Relevant circular, again, the circulars are not there. There is no removal or difficulty order, and there are no forms. Now comes the relevant case laws. Now, one is Union of India versus Mohit Minerals. We all are aware that this is a case wherein the supplies were made and the entire CIF value was also being taxed, and then the ocean freight was also being taxed. So the Honorable Gujarat High Court has given in favor of the assessees, striking it down, and which has been upheld by the Honorable Supreme Court in April 2022. Now, if brief facts have to be seen, can levying of IGST on ocean freight in CIF contracts amounts to double taxation when customs duty on import goods is paid on value inclusive of such freight? Because CIF means you are including that freight also and insurance also. And if the tax is being paid at the time of importing in RCM, then whether the same tax can be also levied on freight alone on the basis of some hypothetical percentage. So in this, the Honorable Supreme Court was of the opinion that CIF transaction is composite supply and principal supply is supply of goods. Let's say, for example, import of coal. So coal is the item which, if not exported, then there will not be any charge pertaining to freight or maybe insurance or any other charges. So therefore, the principal supply is the supply of goods. Composite supply introduced to ensure various elements of a transaction are not dissected and levy is imposed on bundle of supplies together. So therefore, it is not dissection of the various different supplies, and therefore the court has said supply of goods is accompanied by supply of services of transportation and insurance in CIF contract. Supply of transportation service forms part of bundle of supplies between foreign exporter and Indian importer. So this is important. Supply of transportation service forms part of bundle of supplies between the foreign exporter and the Indian importer, because that is already incorporated. The freight is already incorporated in the cost. Levying IGST on service component will contradict the composite supply provision and scheme of the GST law. Indian importer being liable to pay IGST on composite supply comprising of supply of goods and supply of services of transportation, insurance, etc. in a CIF contract. Separate levy on such importer for supply of service by shipping line is not valid. What does it say? It says separate levy on such importer for supply of service by shipping line is absolutely not valid. Thus, impugned order of High Court holding that tax on supply of service already included as tax on composite supply of goods is not permissible was to be upheld. Further, in case of supply, Honorable Court place of supply of shipping service provided by foreign shipping line to foreign exporter selling goods to Indian importer would be India, since destination is in India and services in CIF contract for transport of goods would enter India. Definition of consideration includes payment made by recipient or any other person. Payment of consideration by foreign exporter to foreign shipping lines does not mean same is not supply of service. Further stating in case of ocean freight that shipping service provided by foreign shipping line to foreign exporter in CIF contract. Place of supply of services, destination of goods. Supply of service would necessarily be made to Indian importer and such importer would be considered as recipient. Service of shipping is imported into India for consumption and same is routed through import of goods. Ultimate beneficiary is also importer receiving goods in taxable territory. Section 13, subsection 9 of the IGST read with section 22, clause 93, subclause C of the CGST Act inherently create a deeming function of importer of goods to be recipient of shipping service. Now, if we consider all this, these are or these can be said that these are going against us. Now, what does the law say? Again, the court says, in case of transportation of goods by vessel, not Honorable Supreme Court held that destination of goods in it is India, and a clear territorial nexus is established with event occurring outside territory. Services are rendered for benefit of Indian importer, and transaction has nexus with the territory of India. Destination of goods recognized as a place of supply of service. Statute is broad enough to cover taxable event having extraterritorial aspects bearing nexus with India. So in short, if I have to say, it is a long judgment if it has to be read. Let me try to go to the operating part so that we can read only, we'll try to read only the last two paragraphs. Just allow me to share the order. Yes, the order is there on the screen. Let me go through the. Just let us see what is the conclusion. Based on the above discussion, we have reached recommendation of the GST Council are not binding on the union and so and so. The deletion of Article 279B and the inclusion of 279. I'll read from here. Neither does Article 279 begin with non-obstant clause, nor does 246A state that it is the subject to the provisions of 279A. The Parliament and the state legislature possess simultaneous power to legislate on GST. Further, 246A does not envisage a repugnancy provision to resolve the inconsistency between the central and the state laws on GST. The recommendations of the GST Council are the product of a collaborative dialogue involving the union and states. They are recommendatory in nature. To regard them as binding edicts would disrupt fiscal federalism, where both the union and the state are conferred equal power to legislate on GST. It is not imperative that one of the federal units must always possess a higher share in the power for the federal units to make decisions. Indian federalism is a dialogue between cooperative and uncooperating federalism, where the federal units are at liberty to use different means of persuasion, ranging from collaboration to contestation, and the government, while exercising its rule-making power under the provisions of the CGST Act and the IGST Act, is bound by the recommendation of the GST Council. However, that does not mean that all the recommendations of the GST Council made by virtue of the power under Article 279A Capital 4 are binding on the legislature's power to enact primary legislation, and therefore the Honorable Court says that the statute has broad power. On a conjoint reading of Section 2, Clause 11 and 13(9) of the IGST Act, read with 2, Clause 93 of the CGST Act, the import of goods by a CIF contract constitutes an interstate supply which can be subjected to IGST, where the importer of such goods would be recipient of the shipping service. The IGST Act and the CGST Act defines reverse charge and prescribed entity that is to be taxed for these purposes. The specification of the recipient, in this case the importer, by notification number 10/2017 is only clarificatory. The government by notification did not specify a taxable person different from the recipient prescribed in Section 5(3) of the IGST Act for the purposes of reverse charge. What does it say? It says the government by notification did not specify a taxable person different from the recipient prescribed in 5(3) of the IGST Act for the purposes. He is the same person. 5(4) of the IGST enables the central government to specify a class of registered person as recipient, thereby conferring the power of creating a deeming fiction on the delegated legislature. The impugned levy imposed on the service aspect of the transaction is in violation of principle of composite supply, enriched under Section 2, Clause 30, read with Section 8 of the CGST. Since the Indian importer is liable to pay IGST on the composite supply, comprising of supply of goods and services of transportation, insurance, etc. in a CIF contract, a separate levy on the Indian importer for the supply of services by the shipping line would be in violation to Section 8 of the CGST Act. Now, here is the conclusion, wherein the court is very clearly saying that if the intention is to charge service extra additionally, then that is not the right way of doing it. Anyways, let's go back to the section. So now comes next Torrent Power. It's again a Honorable Gujarat High Court case. 19 December 2018, it was pronounced. The facts are 34/8 of 2018 is the circular which was challenged, which proposes levy of GST on activities carried out against recovery of charges from consumers under the State Electricity Act, being ultra vires the provisions of Section 8 of the CGST, as well as Notification 12/2017, serial number 25. Now the decision is para 4.1 of the impugned circular dated so and so was struck down, being ultra vires the provisions of Section 8 of the CGST Act, as well as notification number so and so, serial number 25. If again we have to see the order and the operating part of that, let me open the order for a moment. Just give me 1 minute to share the order, please. Yes. Yeah, this is the order on your screen. Let me go through the. Yes. Now, if this has to be read, now the time will not permit and that we read all this, but in this is a summary which is given at para 29. This summary may be read that how the Honorable Court has reached to the conclusion that the particular serial number which is levying or proposing to levying tax is absolutely not warranted. We'll go to the final paragraph. What does it say? It says that for the foregoing reasons in para 29, which is mentioned, the petition succeeds and is accordingly allowed to the following extent. Para 4.1 of the impugned order. Para 4.1 is narrated here and below. So I'll go through that so that you have the connect that why it was removed. Impugned circular number 34, dated so and so, to the extent the same reads as under is hereby struck down as being ultra vires the provision of Section 8. What was the para? Whether the activity is carried on out by the discoms against recovery of charges from consumers under the State Electricity Act are exempt from GST. Now, services by way of transmission or distribution of electricity by electricity transmission or distribution utility is exempt from GST in serial number so and so. These services, the other services such as application fees for releasing connection of electricity, rental charges against metering, testing fees for meters, transformations, capacitors, labor charges for consumers for shifting meters or shifting of service lines, charges of the duplicate bill provided by the discoms to consumers are taxable. This is what they are saying. Now, the impugned summons dated so and so is hereby set aside to the extent the petitioners are called upon to produce documents list so and so, except clause 6, income from shifting of ST lines received from Mega. Consequently, the respondent shall drop the proceedings. So, except this clause, all these 5 clauses are struck down by the Honorable Court. So, this is how it has been treated that these are the violation are in violation of the provisions of Section 8. Going back to the case laws or to the section. So these were 2 in favor of the assessee. Now this is in favor of the revenue. So this is Manipal Technologies Limited. Writ petition number was 4866, High Court of Karnataka. Now, if the facts have to be seen, the petitioner has made an application before AAR and filed an appeal before AAR, questioning the clarification on Pattadar passbook cum title deed. Honorable AAR and AAR held that the same will be classified under chapter number so and so, attracting 18%. Agreed by the same, the petitioner has filed the present petition before the Honorable Court. So if I have to see the last concluding part, it says, therefore, the Honorable Court declares that Pattadar book cum title deed is not a document of title as claimed by the assessee and is not classifiable under 4907, but is classifiable under 480. So the order of AAR and AAR was upheld. So this was section 8. Now since the time is there, so what we'll do is we'll start section 9 today and we'll try to cover up whatever is possible today, at least subsection 1 and 2, because subsection 3 is again elaborative and it is RCM. So we need some time to discuss that. And there are a lot of notifications also. So what we'll do is we'll touch upon subsection 1 and 2 today, and then further we'll be covering up tomorrow.
सर शेड्यूल 1 2 3 भी रह गया है, अगर वो लेना हो तो अभी वो ले लेते हैं.
No, schedule 1 2 3 I'll take it later, because okay, chalo, let's take schedule 1 2 and 3. That is there in this chapter only, correct?
Yes sir, chapter section 7.
Fine. So I'll go ahead with the schedules. On the last occasion, we could not have covered, but yes, thanks for reminding. Schedule 1 2 and 3. So again, we'll take schedule 1 today and schedule 3 today. Schedule 2 will be covering up tomorrow, because that is something lengthy, and we'll be covering it tomorrow. Schedule 1. So when we have read the scope of supply, we have seen that in schedule 1, even if there is no condition, even if there is no consideration, then also certain supplies will fall within the scope of supplies. So therefore, if the heading has to be read, it is matters to be treated as supply, even if made or agreed to be made without consideration. So even if there is no consideration, because if we remember the scope of supply, the consideration was mandatory. Supply means, or supply includes all forms of supply such as so and so, made or agreed to be made by a person for a consideration. So consideration was important in course or furtherance of business. So this is an exception which says that even if there is no consideration, it will be deemed to be a supply. 1. Permanent transfer or disposal of business assets where input tax credit has been availed on such assets. So if you are permanently aligning with an asset, which is a business asset, where you have already claimed the ITC on those assets, then even if the alienation is free of cost, it will be treated as supply. Now, we'll be reading section 15 during the course of the discussions. Section 15 speaks about value of supply, and value of supply as per GST law is nothing but a transaction value. But yes, it is with respect to certain conditions, or there are certain conditions to be fulfilled. And if we are not fulfilling those conditions, then in that case, the value of supply has to be as per the valuation rules. Now the question arises that if there is no consideration and the item is covered into schedule 1, then how to value that? So certainly there has to be the applicability of the rules. And for this clause 1 transaction, wherein I am transferring an asset or I'm alienating with an asset on which I've availed the input tax credit. So even if I'm alienating or if I'm supplying that or transferring the asset at absolute free, then also it will be treated as supply, and accordingly the tax treatment will be there. 2. Supply of goods or services between related persons or between distinct persons as specified in section 25. What does it say? Either you are supplying goods or services between related persons or between the distinct person as specified in section 25. When we read section 25, we'll come to know that a person with same PAN number having two different registrations are deemed to be distinct person in the eyes of law, specifically GST law, in the eyes of GST law. So therefore, one PAN number, multiple registrations, all are to be treated as distinct persons. So either related parties and related persons, if we have to see, section 15 explanation we'll have to consider, wherein the related persons are mentioned. So if any supply of goods or services are taken or undertaken between a related party or a distinct person, then either that is in course or furtherance of business, then it will be treated as supply even if without consideration. So therefore, supply of goods or services between the related persons or the persons who are distinct persons as per the provisions of section 25, if it is made in course or furtherance of business, then in that case it will be a supply even if it is without consideration, but will be treated as supply. Now there is a proviso which is given that provided that gifts not exceeding 50,000 rupees in value in a financial year by an employer to an employee shall not be treated as supply of goods or services or both. Let us presume that I am dealing with some items or certain product. Employer and employee are the related parties or related persons. Now, if an employer is supplying certain goods free of cost to the employees, then in that case, this would trigger. But a proviso has been given which says that if it is extend to the extent of 50,000 rupees in a year, then in that case, it will be excluded. It will not be treated as supply of goods or services or both. It will be out of the purview of item 2 of schedule 1. So this needs to be remembered. Then comes supply of goods by a principal to his agent, where the agent undertakes to supply such goods on behalf of the principal, or by an agent to his principal, where the agent undertakes to receive such goods on behalf of the principal. So what does it say? That if I'm supplying any goods to my agent and the agent is undertaking to supply those goods on my behalf, then in that case, it will be treated as supply. At the same time, if the goods are supplied by my agent, where he is undertaking to receive certain goods on my behalf, then in both the cases, if I am supplying to my agent and then he is further supplying, or if my agent is purchasing and then supplying to me, he is purchasing on my behalf and then supplying to me. In both the cases, even if there is no consideration which is flowing from this transaction, when I'm transferring to my agent, I'll not be charging anything from him. When he will supply, then only he will be paying that to me, or the client will pay that directly to me. So in this case, even if there is no consideration, it will be treated as supply. Next is importation of services by a person from a related person or from any of his other establishments outside India in the course or furtherance of business. So if I'm importing any condition, any services by a person who is a related person or from any establishment outside India, which is my establishment, then in that case, if it is in course or furtherance of business, then in that case, it will be covered under Schedule 1, even if it is without consideration, even if I will not be able to pay or I will not be paying for that importation of any of the service, then also it will be treated as a part of supply or as a supply, and accordingly the tax treatment will be done. Schedule 2, I'm not covering today because this is in detail. So we'll be covering Schedule 3 and then Schedule 2 will be taking up tomorrow. Now Schedule 3 says activities or transactions which shall be carried out and treated neither as supply of goods nor as supply of services. This is total exclusion. It will neither be treated as supply of service nor supply of goods. A. Services by an employee to the employer in the course of or in relation to his employment. So if any services are being provided by an employee to his employer in the course of his employment or with relation to his employment, then that is neither supply of goods nor supply of service. 2. Services by any court or tribunal established under law for the time being in force. So any services which is being provided by a court or tribunal which is established under any law for the time being in force is absolutely out of the tax net, and therefore it is to be treated neither as supply of goods nor supply of service. Next, the functions performed by the members of parliament, state legislature, panchayats, municipalities, and other local authorities. These services will be out of the tax net or out of the scope of supply, I would say. The duties performed by any person who holds any post in pursuance of the provisions of the Constitution in that capacity. Again, it will be out of the tax net. C. The duties performed by any person as a chairperson, member, director in a body established by the central or state government or local authority and who is not deemed as an employee before the commencement of this clause. Then also such duty is performed by the chairperson, member, director, or whatsoever is absolutely out of the supply purview. Services of funeral, burial, crematorium, or mortuary, including transportation of the deceased. It's again out of the purview of supply. And since these are out of the purview of supply, there is no question of taxability, there is no question of exemption. It will never be treated as supply. Sale of land and subject to clause B of para 5 of schedule 2, sale of building. So when we will read schedule 2, you will come to know para 5 clause B, which says what? So it speaks about the taxability, that when before the receipt of the NOC completion certificate, if the booking is done or the sale is made, then in that case the taxability will arise. Otherwise, the taxability is not going to arise, because once you receive the BUC, it will become building. So therefore, sale of land and sale of building subject to clause 5, clause B of para 5 of schedule 2. Actionable claims other than lottery, betting, and gambling. So if it is a case of lottery, betting, and gambling, then it will be treated as supply. Otherwise, there are all other actionable claims are out of the purview of supply. Next, supply of goods from a place in the non-taxable territory without such goods entering into India. So we all are aware that there are certain transactions wherein the goods will not enter into the territory of India and it is sold outrightly. So therefore, all such transactions will be falling without or outside the scope of supply. So it will not be treated as supply of goods or supply of services. Supply of goods from a place in the non-taxable territory, which is not a taxable territory, without such goods entering into India. 8. Clause A. Supply of warehouse goods to any person before clearance for home consumption. So again, if there are certain warehouse goods which I'm supplying to any person before entering or before clearance of those goods for the home consumption, then also it will not be treated as a supply. Then supply of goods by consignee to any other person by endorsement of documents of title to the goods after the goods have been dispatched from the port of origin located outside India, but before clearance for home consumption. So this transaction, there was a lot of dispute pertaining to this particular transaction, and now it has been resolved by entrance of clause B, wherein now it is said that in those cases it will not be treated as supply. The explanations are: explanation 1, for the purposes of para 2, the term court include district court, high court, and supreme court. Explanation 2, for the purposes of para 8, warehouse goods shall have the same meaning as assigned to it under the Customs Act 1952. And now this is the retrospective amendment which has been brought in by the Finance Act 2023. It says in Schedule 3 of the CGST Act, para 7 and 8, and the explanation 2 thereof shall be deemed to have been inserted with effect from 1st day of July 2017. 2. No refund shall be made of all the tax which has been collected, but which would not have been so collected had subsection 1 been forced at all material times. So, therefore, what does it say? That if any tax has been collected for these transactions, which is at para 7 and 8, then in that case, those taxes will not be refunded. But the provision is said to be applicable from 1st July 2017. So let us presume it was inserted, if I'm not wrong, from 1st February 2019. So prior to that, if any collections have been made for 1st July 2017 till the 31st day of January 2018, 19. So if any collection was made during this period, then this explanation which is inserted is now saying that the refund will not be granted. At the same time, it is also saying that the law will be made applicable, or para 7 and 8 will be made applicable, not from 1st February 2019, but from the original date, which is 1st July 2019. So this is schedule 3, and now so far as schedule 2 is concerned, we'll be dealing with this tomorrow. So friends, once again I will be uh, tendering my apology for not being able to take the sessions on a regular basis. But yes, certainly I'm trying hard, but because of some or the other reason, it is getting postponed, and we are trying to work out some solution for that. Irrespective of the fact we meet even for half an hour, but my endeavor would be that at least we should meet and we should discuss some of the provision of the law. With this, I'll surely try to find out some solution. Otherwise, we'll come out for some recording sessions if it is possible. So till tomorrow, once again, I'm thankful to each one of you. Let's meet tomorrow and read schedule 2. And if time will permit, then section 9. Thank you. Thank you so much.